Good morning. This is the conducting interviews project for Interviewee 540. I'm Eric Larson. This is Steven. Today we're going to be talking about an interview for a position for an oil and gas at Chevron. This job will be managing several engineers in the production side. And then we will start the interview now. Good morning, Steven. My name is Eric Larson. I'm one of the senior VPs here at Chevron. How are you doing today?
Morning. Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm doing well.
Thank you for coming out here. I know it's a little awkward to do this via distance, but understand, I'm out here on an oil platform, and unfortunately that doesn't really allow in-person interviews that easily. But
definitely, yeah.
I'm glad you're able to make it out, and I'm glad we're able to use this video connection software to the advantage.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Good deal. Well, so I want to talk a little bit of the position just to make sure we're all on the same page here. So this job, in this capacity, you'll be managing several oil production facilities and the engineering side that goes into that. So that includes all the infrastructure, management of the pumping, fluid systems, as well as some of the safety-related systems associated with that. Couple other things just to kind of start off. One, this job is going to involve a lot of travel, including to foreign countries. So I just want to make sure that you're good on your passport and everything like that.
Yes,
so you can't travel, that's kind of going to be a deal breaker. And the second is we will need you to start within 1 month. Will that be any issues?
No, I think all I really need is, I was hoping for 3 weeks, and 4 weeks is actually even better for me. So it works out.
Perfect. Excellent. Glad that we can work that out. Excellent. So, the purpose of the interview is for me to kind of get a feel for you, understand what your strengths are, what your lesser strengths are as well, and kind of see how you'll fit into our team here at Chevron. We're going to start with your work history, and then we're going to move into your educational background, and then I'm going to give you an opportunity at the end to answer any questions you may have regarding this interview, regarding Chevron as a corporation, and then kind of get to know you a little better in your future. We're a large multinational company, but we're always looking to build employees from within, and we're excited to have the opportunity to talk to you today, and a senior engineer from a competitive company into our ranks.
Sounds good.
Your work experience. Actually, first before you get into that, do you have any questions so far about how this is going to go?
No. Thank you for the outline. I appreciate that. I'm good to go.
Excellent. So let's start with your work experience, starting with the most earliest. So, tell me about your job on the farm.
Yeah, that's definitely the earliest, as it basically started at birth. So I grew up on a 7th generation farm. I mean, that's all my family has ever done, and I'm the only son and I'm the only grandson, so I had a kind of a baptism by fire, whether I liked it or not. And so from a really early age, I was managing employees, and my dad being the owner, that's just kind of how things fell into place, whether I liked it or not. And so by the age of 13, especially in the summer, I could manage close to 5 to 10 hired hands. And it was difficult because coming into that job, obviously with no management training whatsoever, and I was still had the responsibilities of getting things done, and no matter what the case was, no matter what the reasons were for not getting the job done, whether it was completely the fault of the hired hands or not, it was still my fault according to my dad. And so I got that management role really early in life, and it had some good, had some bads, but in the end I really enjoyed it. It really instilled in me a really good early maturity and really good early responsibilities. And that kind of led into other things later on in life too.
What would you say you like the most about that job?
The most, definitely the responsibility. I liked, not to be the guy who likes the power trip, but I honestly like being able to get people together for a common goal that would never come together on a normal basis. Because honestly, when you are on a farm and you hire hired hands, they come from all walks of life. Some of them have done hard time. And to try to be able to get those people on a common goal, it's very interesting at times. But when you come through and you're able to complete the goal and then reward them, congratulate them, you can still see, how much it meant to them. Even if they have nothing else, in life going for them, or if they never even graduated high school, you can still see that they appreciate that accomplishment. And being able to come from that, see that from a leader's perspective is extremely fulfilling.
Yeah, that's incredible too. At such a young age. I mean, many of us don't even have management experience or are significantly older. So I imagine that was especially challenging, working with those individuals, without any formal training at all.
Yeah, definitely.
What would you say that you were, if you had one particular strength in that job that you did really well? I know you mentioned managing people. What about, was there any technical aspect associated with that?
Yes, there are definitely technical aspects, but if I had to pick what I did the best at as far as that managing job is dealing with conflict with tact, because especially when you're in a tight knit group of 5 to 10 hired hands, you can get a lot of the inner gossip, you can get a lot of the drama going on, and when somebody was behaving in a way that we need to correct, or participating in something they didn't need to do, or just being lazy, I from an early age realized the point of not making that a public correction. And so I focused on trying to meet with each individual that needed to be guided or put back on the track, personally and privately. And I think I really did a good job, albeit maybe from a lot of trial and error, but ended up being really good at kind of getting through those hard situations with the least amount of collateral damage possible, with the least amount of fallout. And I realized that when you are able to be good at that, when you're able to do that effectively, you even strengthen the relationship with you and that employee going forward. And I think that's really something I excelled at that job.
It sounds like that would be a extremely challenging environment.
Yeah, that's the bad part. It's not something I want to do anymore, but
right. Actually, that's my next question. So why leave the family business and move into oil and gas?
Well, that's a funny question. My dad sat me down when I was 13 and said, "I don't want you to farm." I said, "Good, because I don't want to." No, it's purely this day and age. It's getting too hard to make a living there. My dad still does it today. He works 16 hours a day, and we have a large farm, and we have 2,500 acres. But in large scale farming, when you get to the point where you can't expand anymore, that's the beginning of the end. And we have urban areas coming in on all sides, and that's just kind of how it was. And I always kind of showed a knack for the technical side, because part of that, we fixed 98% of all of the machinery ourselves. We never brought anybody in. We never sent it anywhere. My dad's an amazing mechanic. And I grew up just hearing him saying, "You need to be an engineer so you can fix this." And so, that just kind of put that seed in me early on. And so it was kind of an easy transition for me and for him too, which was nice.
Excellent. Well, we're glad to have you in the oil and gas business. We're always looking for smart engineers over here.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about your time at Williams Company. It looks from your resume that you moved around in the company a little bit in various different capacities, eventually ending up as a project manager. So just kind of briefly walk me through some of the challenges and responsibilities you had at Williams Companies.
Oh, yeah, sure. One thing I was really looking for is a more all-around experience with my first job coming out of college, because my main focus was just to know as much about everything as I can, because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. And so what I did was I elected to apply for the PDP program, which is the Professional Development Program. Okay. And it's a 3-year, 3-rotation program. And so my first year was at the headquarters, and where I was in the controls, instrumentation, and dehydration group. And then my second and third rotation was in the field as project management. It wasn't supposed to be second and third, it's just kind of how it worked out. Right. But it was really awesome being able to see a lot of aspects pretty quickly. But at the same time, that was one of the difficulties was, as soon as I made relationships with people, as soon as I was able to network, I moved. And so it was almost like I had superficial friendships and superficial connections for almost the first 3 years. And I didn't really get to go to that deep, organic friendship with hardly anybody, being able to move around so much. And that is one of the cons, but I feel like the pros outweighed the cons as far as my experience and getting able to, even if it is superficial, grow my network that much more. And it also led me to realize exactly what my niche would be. Project management, and hopefully later on managing project managers, like what I'm talking about today.
Excellent. What would you say that what draws you to project management?
I think it's kind of that seed that was planted early on. Being able to manage contractors and do the technical side of the same thing. That's kind of everything I want to do, because speaking from my previous job at Williams as a project manager, I designed the project. I estimated how much it would cost. it was my responsibility to bid out and hire the contractors that actually did the work, and then actually build the project. And that kind of encompasses my life from beginning to end. Like, I've started out managing employees. I went to engineering school and got that technical foundation, and now I kind of get to use both. And I feel like that's really fulfilling for me, and I feel like that's kind of been my walk through life, and I get to kind of experience that all at once now, in even a bigger fashion. And I really I find that extremely fulfilling.
Now, how would you feel if you moved away more from, as in this position, you'll be kind of more removed from that technical role. How would you feel about kind of leaving the technical side, moving more towards role management? But do you still have a strong desire to remain in that realm, or is that something that you're looking to move away from?
No, that's a really good question. And to be completely frank with you, that's something I'm still a little bit questionable about myself and a little bit struggling with. Is I know that I want to manage, and I know that, the further you get on that, as far as the work goes, the day-to-day business goes, the technical side needs to kind of tone down a little bit, and I'm fine with that. I've kind of come to terms with that, and I kind of am transitioning to be more of, I want to be the best manager I can be. And if that means I need to focus on just the development of the engineers that work for me, that's fine. I can get my technical fulfillment through reviewing their technical work. It doesn't mean I have to do it personally. And if I can kind of somewhat live vicariously through them in that aspect while trying to be the best manager I can be. And I think I'm ready for that, and I think I've come to terms with that.
Absolutely. No, I understand completely. It's not an easy thing to walk away from, for us engineers.
It's true.
What would you say are some of your biggest accomplishments in your role as a project manager at Williams Companies?
Definitely, my biggest accomplishments weren't necessarily what I built. It wasn't necessarily the projects that I was able to build. It was what I had to do to get there. And some of my biggest accomplishments, because I managed projects for Williams in Southern Louisiana, was to kind of overcome that culture. And I lived in Southern Louisiana for 3 years doing that. And the culture in Southern Louisiana is, when you move there, you might be there, but you're not one of them. and so it kind of comes back to what I had to deal with growing up. I had to get people who didn't like me a lot of times, who had no connection with me, to work together and to complete a common goal safely, on time, and on budget. And we had a lot of, personal issues going on throughout those 3 years, and we overcame a lot of things to get the projects done on time. So I think that's some of my biggest accomplishments were always around the people things that happened.
What were some of the techniques you used to get through those difficult times as a manager and a leader?
Yeah. Some of the techniques I use is, first of all, kind of exercising what I learned early on in life, that if I needed to have a serious conversation with somebody, I didn't do it publicly. One of the techniques, I just kind of would have a private meeting with, basically, like, for instance, I had a private meeting with one of my foremans about 7 or 8 months ago. And he, a lot of times I had heard that he would talk bad about me behind my back. Some of the times the project was slipping. I could tell that the people weren't, they just weren't working as safe. And I just leveled with him. I worked with him. I talked with him in private, and I said, look, I know that I'm younger than you. I know that you have a lot more experience, but we still have a lot to gain from this. And what I would do is I would create a common ground, and not based on fear, not based on retribution, just based on what we could succeed if we can put our personal things aside and move on. And not, one of my biggest things was I didn't want to make it seem like I used them for the job. Like, I truly wanted to learn from them as a younger project manager. I mean, most of my foremans are 40s and 50s. And so if I made myself available to them as having an open mind and willing to learn from them, they kind of took that stereotype away of the young engineer coming in. And that really helped me. So that's one of my biggest tactics that I use in managing projects.
Excellent. Well, now we talk a little bit about your work history. Let's kind of shift gears a little bit and talk about your educational background. So I see impressive GPA, mechanical engineer. Tell me about your time at Missouri University of Science and Technology.
Oh, it was difficult, no doubt. So it's basically just an engineering school. That's almost all we had. And so I wasn't, for some reason, I don't know if I wasn't as smart as everybody else, but I wasn't able to to study a little bit and do a lot outside. I basically, especially on test days or basically any day of the week, I mean, I'd study 8 hours a day.
Oh, wow.
But I had a good time there. I was able to participate in a few extracurricular activities while I was there. But a lot of it, honestly, was we were just hitting the books every day. But it gave me what I needed. I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot. I wish I could retain more, but I feel like it was a little bit cramming. But it definitely set me up for success. I mean, my school has one of the biggest career fairs in the nation. And so they really make sure that not only do we get the expertise, but we get the job security coming through school. So it was great for me. I really appreciated that.
Absolutely not. You know, a 3.55 GPA. How would you say that? Do you think that reflects? You said 8 hours a day of studying. Do you think that really is a honest reflection of your abilities, or do you think that it's not?
Well, I mean, yes and no. I don't think GPAs are linear, right? I don't think they are the same across the board. I know I could have gone to a state school and probably got a 3.9. But since I went to an engineering specific school, I mean, they tried to kill us. I feel like it took 10 years off my life. I'm not joking. And also a lot of that was my first 2 years hurt me a little bit on my GPA because I played basketball. I played basketball in college for the first 2 years while I studied. And I had 3 surgeries during that 2 years with over 20 months of rehab. And so that's where a lot of my B's came from, and honestly 1 or 2 C's. And so my last 2 years, I was really trying to make up for that. And I think out of my last 3 to 4 semesters in school, I had 1 B. So I think not only did that show a maturity of me from starting school to ending school, like a lot of us go through, but also I was able to accomplish a lot and go through a lot of hard times and still not get myself too far behind to still succeed in the future.
Well, absolutely, and it shows a positive upward trend, which is always a good thing too.
Definitely.
The opposite is far worse.
Yeah, definitely.
Strong and finish weak.
Definitely.
Here at Chevron, we like strong finishers. That's kind of our company ethos.
Yeah.
What would you say were your best classes? Like, what were your strengths within the realm of mechanical engineering?
My strengths are definitely around the thermodynamics classes, and that's kind of what led me into oil and gas. And I mean, I took 4 semesters of thermodynamics and actually 1 extracurricular class, internal combustion engines, which is basically a thermodynamics 5. And I really enjoy the pressures, the temperatures, and the flow of fluids and what we're able to do with that. And it was, like I said, my love for that class, and I don't know why I kind of have a little bit of a knack for it, but that kind of led me into oil and gas and was able to get me my first internship at Williams, and then led me into my full-time role.
Excellent. Now that's thermodynamics is a lot of fun.
Definitely. Yeah, it was rough at first, but then really, really great when you figure it out.
Exactly. Yep. Definitely a puzzle in a lot of ways.
That's for sure.
So let's take a step back and from the education and the work experience. Obviously, you have an impressive resume that speaks for itself. But let's talk about some of the things that made those achievements possible in all the ways. Now, you mentioned your upbringing, but what would you say that, if I had to say, hey, Steven, what is your chief strength? What would you say that is?
I would say that it's my work ethic. Definitely. That's always been my strength. And being very frank with you, I knew that I was never the smartest person in the room. And I hope I'm never the smartest person in the room, because it usually means I'm in the wrong room. But I can definitely work harder than anybody in the room. And that's always been my motto throughout life. And so I was able to get the better grades than people who were much smarter than me for that reason. And I was able to have more successful projects because I was able to put in the work. And I understand that, later on in life, it's kind of a double-edged sword. And that's something I'm trying to balance right now, is not working too much, now that I'm married and later on in life. But that's definitely my chief best skill, best ability.
Excellent. Now, if you had to say that you had one limitation or something that's maybe holding you back or that you're working on, what would you say that would be?
My main thing that I tend to struggle with, and I understand if this is going to raise a red flag, I just want to be completely honest with you, so we can know going into things, is I'm good at it. I don't necessarily enjoy working on teams.
Okay.
And that kind of stems from college. A lot of times, every single team project we have, it turned out that, half the people didn't do anything, and then it was kind of left to people who actually cared about it, and then everybody got the praise. And even in my career now, project managers, we don't work together. Every project manager works autonomously from each other. And of course, we have teams which are made up of the people we hire, the contractors and everything like that. And I excel in that area, but I feel like if I'm put on a team for a common goal, sometimes I struggle at it. I have made conscious decisions in the past 2 years to help me get better at that. And I feel like my ability has gotten better, but I still struggle with enjoying it. It's not my first choice. And so that's something I still am working on to this day.
Yeah, and that's fine. One of the good things we have here at Chevron is we try and build our teams around individuals on them. So hopefully we will minimize some of those struggles you've had in the past. By building a team that doesn't have any freeloaders on it. We don't like to carry a lot of dead weight around here. So
that's good.
Hopefully that's something we can, if you're offered the position, we can work through, and should be a major concern that we have here. But you will be working on teams quite a bit.
Yeah, I understand that.
So I've kind of got to know you a little bit. Is there any questions you have for me about Chevron, the organization, the job, our vision, anything like that?
Yeah, sure. I do have a couple questions. As far as your view, and you can be as candid as you like. I always like to ask this in an interview, but and it can be to my job specifically, or your job, or the company as a whole. If there was one thing you could change about how we do things or how you do things at Chevron, what would it be?
Well, I would say one of the biggest struggles we have here in the engineering side is we have a large contingent of the business side, because this is ultimately a business. And sometimes the needs of the business side and the needs of the engineering side don't necessarily meet where they should. They want to make the most money possible. We want to do things, to the highest technical level of achievement possible, and we have to find a way to meet in the middle. I think that's a lot of source of internal tension within the company. But the good news is that's more at my level. It shouldn't hopefully get down to your level too much. Where it does impact your job would be when we have to make some kind of technical change at the last minute to save money.
Sure.
That unfortunately usually isn't a decision I even get to make. It comes in a little higher than me, because ultimately our responsibility to the shareholders is to maximize shareholder earnings, maximize profit. And sometimes that doesn't necessarily correspond with what the engineers want to see.
Gotcha.
And as a result, especially in the drilling side of things, we're constantly using old rigs, trying to keep them up to date, modernize them, keep them going longer, which also presents an engineering struggle in its own right to keep them operating.
Now, I appreciate you being honest. We deal with that at Williams. It seems like it's the nature of the beast, no matter where you're at.
Yeah.
So I understand that. But I appreciate it. That's really I had other questions, but we kind of answered them as we went through the interview. So I appreciate it.
Excellent. Well, so, thank you for talking with me today. I really appreciate it. You seem like a good candidate for the job. So the next step is I'm going to take this interview, the results for that on to my boss, and then there will most likely be a second interview with my director, who's the VP of all engineering operations. So we should be getting back to you within the next week or so.
Sure.
I've really enjoyed talking with you today, and I think that we have a lot. Chevron has a lot to offer you, and this company may be a very good fit for you. I'm always looking for good people on my team, and you're definitely that. So like I said, we'll be in contact with you here soon. But I thank you for coming out today. Any last questions? Anything?
No, I'm good to go. Thank you for telling me what the next steps would be, and I appreciate the time, and I appreciate the chance. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate it.
Take care.